Thank you so much, Saurabh. So it is my pleasure and honor to welcome to the stage the fantastic Umang Rustagi, who is the co-founder and deputy CEO of FinAccel. Umang, it is so great to have you join us in this conversation today. Welcome.
Yeah, good to be here, Anna, and thanks for MoEngage for inviting me here. Yeah.
No, I think we're very lucky to have you. What you've built with Kredivo and the other products that you're doubling down on are just so exciting in terms of what's happening in the digital banking economy and e-commerce more broadly. So today we're just going to be in a very informal way, learn more about you and what you've built with Akshay as you've built through the FinAccel journey. So can you just start by telling us a bit about your journey? Like, tell us about how you started the company and how you've ended up building it to such success.
Sure, happy to. So I think obviously first I'll just start with a very quick introduction. I'm Umang. I'm the co-founder and deputy CEO for FinAccel, and I also serve as the CEO for the Kredivo of Indonesia's business. So I personally started my career with McKinsey, where I was helping banks in India and Southeast Asia building, doing digital transformation projects, as well as building credit risk model. And I could really see that there was an opportunity in providing access to credit, which banks were really struggling with because of the lack of access of credit bureau data, as well as digital technology that was emerging at that time. And during that time, about 5 to 6 years back, I actually met my co-founders, Akshay and Ali, who were veterans in the ad tech space. So they actually had seen how mobile technology and digital data had disrupted the entire audience targeting industry. And then they were basically also seeing the power of digital data. So we all came together about 6 years back with a common vision of how we can actually solve a very important problem, which is basically problem of providing or lack of access of credit to people who are credit worthy, and leveraging the mobile technology and digital data in order to do that. So that's how the whole vision of Kredivo, FinAccel came with. And then the way that we actually went to the market is by launching a product, Kredivo, which is basically a buy now, pay later platform. So the whole thought process of Kredivo really came in because we were actually seeing some very interesting macro trends, where we were seeing a rapidly emerging middle class in Indonesia and Southeast Asia in general. We were seeing there was obviously a lack of credit card penetration in these markets and a very booming e-commerce market. So when we actually put two and two together, we basically said that we want to solve the problem of e-commerce payment friction. And we want to do that by actually providing credit at the checkout. And that's how the whole idea of Kredivo actually really emerged. So over the last 5 to 6 years, we have been working on this vision and essentially executing on that. And today, for example, we are one of the leading buy now, pay later platforms in Indonesia. We serve over 4 million customers. We work with over 300 e-commerce platforms, including the 8 of the top 10, and also available on thousands of offline points. So that's how the whole team came together around a common vision of how do we solve that problem of access to credit.
That is such a cool story. And what it speaks to, Umang, is the fact that, you know, your combined industry expertise along with Akshay has made you solve a problem that is actually, you know, my former role was I was the CEO of a bank here in ASEAN, and that was the #1 issue that people were trying to solve. How do you bank the unbankable? How do you provide credit? How do you help people get access to credit when they don't even have like personal identifiers in a way that the developed markets simply just haven't thought through? So what you've done really is actually solve for a massive challenge for people, for communities across ASEAN. So first of all, congratulations on actually figuring out the secret sauce to that, because it's not an easy thing to have. You know, lots of people are trying to do it, and you've managed to fall onto something or create something that's really meaningful and has impacted the market in a very meaningful way. So first of all, well done. So you've spoken about the amazing stuff that you've done in Indonesia, and we hear about that and understand that, but now you're expanding to the rest of Southeast Asia. So tell us about your plans for expansion. And I'm particularly interested, as I said, as I've worked and lived in various different countries in ASEAN. And I know that the profile of customers, the regulatory environment, the way in which you allocate risk, and you know the challenges that you might have with the cost of capital, all of these things are going to be different in different markets. So talk to me about how you are thinking about expanding.
Sure. So I think obviously Over the last 5 years, we have built a market leading position in Indonesia. But I think when we just look at this entire opportunity, right, I think we still believe that we are on the ground floor of this opportunity. So while we are obviously expanding into the region and we recently launched Vietnam market, we launched Kredivo in Vietnam. And I think over the next year, we will plan to launch in a few other markets as well in emerging Southeast Asia. I think our core focus still remains Indonesia. And I think because there are so many things to do here as well, right? So obviously, while we have currently served about over 4 million customers, there are about 70 to 80 million people in the middle class who we believe are fundamentally creditworthy. So the opportunity just in Indonesia is just immense, right? And I think as we are actually evolving our product itself, I think there are multiple use cases that we are actually addressing. So just to tell you a bit more about the story of Kredivo, we started Kredivo with a simple 30-day buy now, pay later. We layered on the installment product to basically solve the problem of affordability. We then launched personal loans because that was one of the big needs, and then expanding into offline. So the idea is that to keep on expanding into multiple credit use cases that customers need over their life cycle. So we are thinking of new product launches in the sector of education loan, healthcare loans, maybe offering higher tenor products to these customers as they go through their life cycle, like motorcycle and auto loans. So that's one area that we are really working on in terms of just expanding multiple use cases. And then I think as we are looking at the opportunity in emerging Southeast Asia, we see a lot of parallels, right? The same macro trend that I really talked about, which is the rapidly emerging middle class, lack of credit card data, as well as booming e-commerce market, is compelling us to also expand into other markets. Now, there are a lot of similarities, while differences as well in these markets, because the macro trends are similar. So the real inherent need for a product like Kredivo exists. So we also want to focus on our strength, which is basically on building really smooth digital experiences and leveraging the alternate data to build credit scores and provide a real-time and automated experience. Now, as you said, there are definitely differences in terms of customer behavior. Regulation is definitely one of the big differences, as well as I think also our go-to-market and the maturity of the market, because Indonesia was, I think I would say, a little bit ahead of the curve because that's where saw the massive amount of investment into e-commerce. We are definitely seeing that other markets like Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand are actually going through the similar journey. So the idea is that we want to launch with our core product and then really localize that product depending on the regulation, as well as customer behavior and evolve this product over time. So yeah, it's a very exciting journey. We are also learning on the way and see how this works out.
Yeah, and again, I just have to pivot on the fact that you've been so successful in Indonesia. It's super interesting because I'd love to sort of dive a bit more deeply on the use cases outside the pay as you go, the platform that you've built for Kredivo in Indonesia. What are the other use cases that you're going to look at doubling down on in other countries? Because again, you know, what I learned as a CEO of a bank is that there are so many different ways that millennials in particular want to be able to use credit, not simply at the cash register, but other ways. So are there other use cases that you're interested in, and in particular, where you might sort of see the use of the technology that you're building now?
Yeah, no, I think there is definitely the technology or the inherent platform that we are building can be leveraged across multiple use cases. Because I think with Kredivo, we are essentially, if you look at the way that we are really focusing on going about this journey, is we are looking at from the customer's perspective. So when you are actually starting your job, you are in your late 20s, early 30s, you basically need microcredits. You need credit for your basic day-to-day consumption needs. You need it for essentially buying things online, offline, and that's how Kredivo is what really serves your need. But as you are going through your journey, you are basically starting a business. Is there a way that we can actually provide financing for young proprietors, for micro and small SMEs that people will start? As you are going through your journey, you are basically getting married, having children, you are also investing in assets. So how can we finance, let's say, your motorcycle loan, car loans? And all of these are basically built around the same inherent customer relationship that we have developed with Kredivo, and how we know a lot more about these customers, about their behavior, about their aspiration. So the idea is to basically serve these customers over their life cycle as they go through their journey. And maybe in the next few years, maybe given how rapidly the industry is transforming, maybe even provide home loans, for example, to these customers. And a lot of this can be actually done digitally because the entire customer experience is now moving digitally. I think as we also seen with e-commerce, people started with buying small items. Now once they become more comfortable, then they started purchasing large items. We saw now nobody is buying, very few people are actually buying mobile phones offline. Most of them are buying online. And now people are actually thinking, hey, if I can buy a mobile phone online, I can even purchase a motorcycle online, a car online. So as people are also becoming more and more comfortable with digital experiences, our idea is to basically follow these customers and provide financing for these needs and really serve these customers. Yeah.
It is a great idea. I would also like to understand your view on whether or not the regulatory environment is going to allow you to do that. It's such a, I mean, that for me is the key kind of conversation, I guess, as you build and grow your product, which is, do you think that the regulatory environment either will keep up with platforms like you or will change to regulate so that, to your point, the type of regulation that we see of banks might also apply to products like Kredivo?
I think the regulatory environment is also changing as people are becoming more and more digital. So just to give you an example, I think over the last 5 years, we've actually seen that earlier for doing any loan purchase or basically signing any loan contract needed to be a wet signature. But now there are regulations that have come in that allow digital signature. Similarly, I think the regulators are also looking at how they can actually regulate the use of data in a manner that provides more, I would say, more control to customers in order to share that data so that it can be done in a regulated manner. So with the whole open banking APIs, open banking coming in, there is customers are able to then share more data with institutions like us in order for them to get access to credit. So things are definitely changing and evolving as we speak. And we really believe that this is the time now, especially post-COVID, where we have actually seen an acceleration in this digital disruption. And the regulators are also becoming more and more comfortable with the idea. We've seen, I think, in the last 5 years, the entire digital lending licenses come up in Indonesia. Now, I think across many markets in Southeast Asia, the regulators are also allowing digital banks. So things are definitely changing and happening. And we believe that we want to be at the forefront of this change. So just to give you an example, in Indonesia, we are fully regulated. We have a multi-finance or consumer finance license, as well as a digital lending license. In markets like Vietnam, we actually have a joint venture with the consumer finance companies. In other markets that we launch, we also want to launch in a fully regulated manner. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say in terms of that. Yes, things are definitely changing.
I love that your answer, which is basically, it doesn't matter which way it goes, we were going to be there and we're going to try and figure out how to build something for our customers and follow them on the journey. And you're absolutely right to do that, Umang. I think customers really do want to have a digital experience with everything that they're doing to do with their finances. So, congratulations to you in particular for, as I said, thinking forward and being able to build something that actually really does work with regulatory environments, but also give the customers what they need. So excited to hear about what you do and what you build. Saurav has just come on screen, which means I think we may have some questions.
Yes. Such an interesting story, Kredivo. You've been working with them for 4 years plus.
Yeah.
And when I came on board at MoEngage, I got to hear the entire story of how long we've been working with them. So proud of what you guys have achieved. There is a question here. I'll read it out. How did you start with building the user's credit card history when they first start on the platform? Was it incentivized quick repayment versus penalized late payments?
Very interesting question. So yeah, I think it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Because there is no data. So how do you lend? There is no credit history for these customers. So yeah, I think so we actually started with so the entire product actually evolved looking and solving that problem, because when we started about slightly over 5 years back, there was basically only credit bureau data available. And we know that credit bureau penetration in these markets is very poor. And that's why banks are not able to scale up. So we basically said that, okay, we have to address non-bureau customer or very thin file customer where bureau data may be not enough. So what we really did was we actually started with a 30-day pay later product just to make sure that, okay, while we don't have a credit history for this customer, but if we give them a small ticket loan for 30 days, we can actually build their credit history very quickly. So the first 6 months, 1 year was all about, okay, let's lend small amounts of money to these people. Even if the defaults are higher, these defaults are basically the cost of learning. Because what we are really getting in return is basically very rich customer history, because we know that who's the customer who's going to pay, who's the customer who's not going to pay. So then we essentially, what we really did was that we actually layered on all the digital data that we were essentially collecting with the consent of the customer and use that data to actually build risk models. And over a period of time, we then started increasing user limits who were actually paying on time. We actually scaled up their limits, and we actually also introduced higher ticket, higher tenor products, where they can actually use more of their limits over time. So the entire product actually evolved to solve that problem.
Okay, great. That reminds me of something. You know how electricity companies, there are companies that will give you 5% off if you pay your bill before the due date. And there are companies which will penalize you 5% if you don't pay the bill on time.
Yeah.
The second part of this question is, what did you guys do? Were you giving incentives if somebody repaid early, or were you putting a penalty if they were late?
It's okay, very interesting. So I think the way that we really started with that, our 30-day product was free to use. It was 0% interest from day one. Because the idea was that the 30-day product is a product which we use to actually get data and get the learning and basically drive user stickiness. So even today, like we were essentially the first one in the market, which basically said that we are going to offer a 30-day loan to customer at 0% interest.
Okay.
And that was basically what we really did. And then the entire monetization of the business model actually comes from the installment and the personal loan. So that's why if you look at the way that customers actually use Kredivo, they use it like a credit card. An average Kredivo customer is doing 25 transactions in a year. With that, we are able to essentially then get more and more user insights about these customers.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for your time, Umang. I think we are right. Spot on time in terms of wrapping up today's conversation. But before we do that, any last minute closing remarks from you from a Kredivo perspective?
Yeah, no, I think not much to say. I think obviously we started Kredivo and FinAccel with the whole vision of how do we address the access of credit. Now I think our vision is really expanding into how do we serve tens of millions of customers by providing access to fast, affordable, and convenient financial services, even going beyond credit. So I think, yeah, as we are building our product and use cases, we are also looking at how do we serve more and more needs of our customers.
Fantastic. It's a really great value add for Southeast Asian economy. And I wish you guys all the best and look forward to seeing more growth, more expansion, and more problems solved in the near future. Thank you, Umang.
Yeah.
Anna, any remarks from you before we wrap up?
No, I love that you started where you did, and now you're speaking about hundreds of millions of customers across Southeast Asia. It speaks to your ambition, but also the possibility. And certainly running the SMB customer segment across Asia Pacific and Japan, I can see why you are doing what you're doing. And I think you're doing an amazing job with Kredivo. So congratulations mostly. And also looking forward to partnering with both you and MoEngage on your journeys.
Definitely. Thanks a lot for the kind words. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna. I'll just do a quick closing remark for all of our audience today. Thank you for joining. Thank you for staying back. There's one last thing I normally always share. If anybody wants to continue their growth journey, MoEngage have an academy where you can come and register. You can continue learning more. Just go to this link, fill up your details, and you'll receive a link in your email to be able to access. Thanks a lot for joining.